Welcome to the Weekly Pistol Podcast. At the end of this hour, we want you better than when we started.
All right, what is good? What's good?
Hello.
What is good, Ray?
How you doing?
I haven't seen you in a minute, brother.
Been missing you guys.
Oh, I always miss you. I miss you a lot. Before we get started, as always, we're going to talk some quick numbers from Blue Help. I don't remember because Veronica's not here. If you're stalking her on Instagram, she's somewhere in Vegas. If you happen to be in Vegas this weekend, by the time you hear it, she'll be back. But send her a shout out.
Shout out to the queen.
Yeah. So Blue Help, as of today, we're currently up to 90 suicides. And last week, I had mentioned, Tony weren't here, but we had lost an officer up north to suicide, fairly young. I think he only had less than 10 on, and I think he was probably maybe 30, if that.
Are you fucking kidding me?
So it continues. Again, if you're listening for the first time, hit the subscribe button. I still can't get used to saying that. I always feel like a teenager. You know what I'm talking
like,
about?
share, subscribe, follow.
Yeah.
You know.
It's weird. I don't know.
No, but on that topic about like the suicide rate and all that stuff. So like, what has been neglected the past 2 years? Mental health.
Mental health.
Oh, we're gonna worry about fucking everything other than mental health, which is the main fucking issue here.
Right. And then you're at home all of 2020 with your thoughts and
Lock
your
yourself
demons.
in.
Yeah.
You know, one thing, guys, I noticed from personal experience, everybody, when they talk about suicide, it usually gets left out that for most people that have had those thoughts, they never knew they were coming. It's not something that was planned. I know when it happened to me, I was surprised at how it came out of the blue. I was always, I'll never be one of those guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Those intrusive thoughts, man, they fuck you up pretty good.
Yep.
Just walking along the way. And today's a good day to have my last meal.
Exactly.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. So today's guest, Ray, do you mind if we use your last name or just Ray?
No, I'm good with
Ray
it.
Cruz.
I'm very open.
You've done some other podcasts, been a member of Pistol for many, many years. It's a good story. We mentioned in the department you retired from?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Yep. Arizona Department of
Public safety.
trucker fucker, right? Which, when you guys listen to this podcast, there's something out there called shit magnets. And I know we've had some on this podcast before, but I'm here to tell you, this guy sitting to my right is a big pile of shit magnet. Okay, when you hear his story, let me rephrase that. When you hear his stories, it's hard to believe that someone who only chased taillights his whole career got into the shit that he got into. So I appreciate it, Ray, coming out. How about you just give us a quick backstory? You got a beautiful family, young 4-year-old daughter, right?
Yep. I got 4 kids. My oldest 23. She just graduated ASU. We actually had her party yesterday.
Whoop, whoop.
Nothing
Yeah.
like 30 millennials at a house getting drunk. If that doesn't push everything we...
You need meds and a lot of alcohol.
He's like, I need a day off.
I got a soon-to-be 21-year-old. She's on her way to graduate next year, be a teacher. Let me see. I got a boy. He's about to turn 6. And my youngest is about to turn 4 in a week and a half.
How old are you, Ray?
40. I just turned 46.
46 and a 4-year-old. Oh, man. It's like having child support the rest of your life. No wonder you're fucking working as much as you're working. Holy shit. All right,
I'm
so
still working with the goose egg for kids, so
yeah, and you're
Ray,
like
hats off to
15
you,
years
man.
younger than Ray.
hats off.
So even if you started in 5 years, you'd still be ahead of him.
I'm going to be driving one of those rascals to her graduation. I'm going to put a big whipping tent on there.
Fucking Ray's gonna be in a walker over there. Kevin all fucked up with a walker to the graduation and shit.
Oh, your grandpa showed up.
Yeah.
No, that's my dad.
That's my dad.
Okay, so backstory, Marine, right?
Former Marine, infantry Marine. We're the real Marines.
Well, yeah, there's only one kind of Marine. I learned that. And so you get out of the Marines, and are you from Arizona?
No, I'm from California. Lost myself for a few years and came out to Arizona. And, people always say it was a calling. I didn't realize it. And then it just felt like the right thing to do. I knew I needed
To come to Arizona or be a cop?
to be a cop. Getting out of California.
What part of
that's the right thing
California?
to do. Southern California, Inland Empire.
Oh, shit.
The IE.
Sudanio. That's all we got in the fucking building over here. And just to mention, we usually go to video on this, but this particular day we didn't set it up. But he is all sleeved out. It's not gang related. Very
not.
patriotic, but
Repping the California. too.
Inland Empire.
Yeah.
There's not much poorer than that place. So, so you come to Arizona, and instead of being a city cop,
I wanted to be highway patrol when I was a kid. You know, I grew up at, CHP, watching Chips. Not going to lie. I was a big Chips fan, sing the song, you name it. I just knew I wanted to be highway patrol. And I got to admit, you said a taillight chaser. I'm really glad I came to Phoenix because I felt like we're kind of hybrid down here.
It's funny because I know some CHP guys through Pistol, and CHP is a lot different than highway patrol out here.
They're a true state
Those
police out there.
motherfuckers do some damage.
Yeah.
Like every time there's a chase, it's CHP. It's 100% Chips. Was that what you were expecting when you came out here?
I was, and that's bad on me not doing my research. I was a little let down. But like I said, I'm glad I didn't do our outlying areas where you see the guys sitting in the median just pulling radar all day. Not to say they don't get into stuff, but, they're dealing with 80, 90% travelers. So
But you were in Metro Phoenix, right? You got assigned Metro?
Yeah, I straight out academy, the big joke, everybody goes to graveyards. And oddly enough, there was only one spot open for graveyards. So I volunteered for it and got graveyards in Central Phoenix right off the bat.
Damn, that's fucking busy. A lot of accidents.
Was it because you wanted to be busy?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of all or nothing.
Just get it all in.
It's the worst area that we have, the highest crime area, and it's the busiest area. And I didn't want to take collisions and, broke down motorist on the side of the road all day.
Definitely. Yeah.
That you don't, not in Metro Phoenix, you don't.
That's why I went to Ferguson.
I agree. It's definitely not Ferguson, but it's close. So you go through that, and do you take graveyards? Is that the first shift? You got the last spot on graveyards?
It was the only spot. So I asked all my fellow, classmates if anybody wanted it. Of course, everybody looked at me like I was an idiot. So I took the one and only graveyard spot.
Nice.
And I believe that's where you remained your entire career, right?
My entire career until the very end. And we'll talk about it later. I got lucky when that day came. My department actually tried to take care of me. A little too late, but they did reassign me to a detective spot to try to give me time to clear my head and maybe salvage my career.
So just for the listeners out there, give them a perspective of what, an average day of Metro Phoenix highway consisted of. Was it a lot of shootings, drive-bys, freeway road rage or accidents?
For us on graveyards, it was just a lot of high-speed DUI collisions, a lot of criminal activity if you were looking for it, because everybody on the side streets eventually hops on that freeway. So a lot of arrests. If you're looking for it, my night was a lot of arrests every night. Few collisions, drunks, just a little bit of everything. It was really well-rounded.
That's probably why you lived it so much.
And, kind of get hooked on that after a while.
So can you kind of tell us, when was your critical incident? How many years into your career was your critical incident?
Well, the first one, and I don't know if you want to start there, was about 10 months after being in. And the thing is, I didn't realize it was a critical incident at the time.
That's not the one with Casey, right?
No.
Okay. So how many years in? Let's start with that one.
With Casey, so
let's start with the first one.
The first one, I'd been on about 10 months.
So less than a year. What can you kind of tell us what happened?
Yeah, one of my squad mates on graveyards gets into a pursuit with a stolen vehicle, and it was that time of night where our swing shifters were still working. So of course everybody's going towards the stolen vehicle. That lady ends up ramming our officers. So now we're definitely gonna keep pursuing this one, and they start setting up for spike strips, and she's driving pretty erratically, and she sees our officer laying down spike strips. He's on the shoulder, so she aims her vehicle at him, and he's got no choice but to jump into the roadway. And unfortunately, our other officer ends up taking him out, and he does die on scene at that moment.
Where were you?
You are fucking kidding me.
Yeah, that was pretty tough. I'm not gonna be one of those people that blows it up bigger than it was for me. It's not my critical incident, but looking back, that deeply affected me. I did know that officer, man, for some reason I'm getting choked up thinking about it. It was tough because myself and another squad mate were coming from the opposite direction. So when we heard that scream on the radio that the officer had been hit, you know, we had to make a decision. Do we go to the scene or do we go after this lady who's still trying to get away? And we made the right decision. We broke off and we chased her into a neighborhood. And we didn't find her, but we were able to set up the initial perimeter, which helped eventually getting her caught. So very tough to hear everything going on in the radio, and you're sitting on the perimeter waiting for the dog to come in and track her down.
You guys ultimately got her, right?
Yeah, we ultimately got her. You know, that was a tough night. Like I said, looking back, that's where I definitely saw the first failure. We had a debrief after that, and where I felt the department went wrong is we had two separate debriefs. We had one for obviously the direct officer involved, the first unit that helped him out, and then the rest of us had a separate debrief. So that instantly makes you feel like, hey, we're here for you, but you guys don't really have much to bitch about, so let's get this over with.
Yeah, because you weren't on scene.
You're not on scene, so what's your bitch? It's a little tough. I'm not going to, once again, say I was best friends with that officer, but I definitely knew him, talked to him that night. You know, it had an impact on me. And
yeah, clearly.
And obviously, you know, it makes you feel like, okay, if the department's looking at this, I'm a new officer, and they're looking at it like, listen, we're going to debrief you, but you really don't have much. Then any of those emotional thoughts I was feeling at that moment, I just felt they weren't justified.
They weren't validated.
They weren't valid. There you go. You know, I'm just building something up in my head is all I'm doing. Just suck it up, buttercup, go back to work. And that's literally what we did.
Did you have any symptoms after that?
You know, it's the first time.
Do you remember?
So I told you guys I got 4 kids. I don't know if you noticed the big age gap. The 2 older ones are not my biological daughters. I think of them as my own daughters. I've been raising them since they were little. When I came home at the end of that shift, I completely broke down. I remember sitting in my office just bawling, and the look on my daughters, you know, it was the first time they'd see me just break down and cry. So yeah, I was definitely feeling something, and I just cry it out, and we got to get back to work and get ready for the funeral now.
Now, going back, watching you get emotional, like that's a normal reaction.
Right.
That's normal now. You know, then you stuffed it down. And that was how many years ago did that occur?
That was in 2009.
All right. So, you know, if we had the doctors on, which we will, Lauren's going to be on in about a month, but like that's the right reaction to have those emotions. Was he on Graves with you? Was he on your squad, or was he a swing shifter?
No, he was a swing shifter, and the officer that unfortunately hit him was a graveyard officer on the same squad as us.
Right.
How does anybody know how the graveyard officer is?
He's you know, he's had his ups and downs. He's actually he did come to Pistol a few times. He's taken his own route. He's still currently working, and he's made the best of a bad situation. I don't even know if that's a good term. He's plugging along.
Yeah,
he's plugging along.
We check on him every once in a while. He'll reach out, or we'll reach out to him. So 10 months on, and you stuff it down. You go, well, I don't even think you stuffed it down, right? You did the right thing because you went home and cried.
Well, you're right. Where I did stuff it down was my feelings of, well, if this is what happens when an officer gets killed, and I didn't get hurt, I wasn't on scene, then I have nothing to bitch about. And that's what kind of set me up for the future downfall, that you have no room to talk unless you're involved. And even if you are involved, kind of keep that shit to yourself because you don't want to scare the other guys.
Right.
You know, because that's a word we really don't use, scare somebody, you know.
Right.
Isn't that so fucked up that that's truly how that is?
And that's why I say it was, you know, I wasn't a part of that critical incident. I had a very, very minor role, but it just planted that seed in my head of suck it up, shut up, go to work. These things happen.
Right.
This happens to everybody.
Right.
Yeah. You know, it's an auditory thing. We listen to the radio, we hear it, those hot tones kick out. Feeling of helplessness, I would expect, right? You got to make that decision. And that decision is something that some of us have had to make where you say, do I stay or do I go? Which will lead us into the next critical incident that you had. So at that 10-month mark, did the symptoms persist after you cried at home, or how did you deal with it going back to work? Did you have any hesitation or anything?
I didn't have any hesitation. If anything, what made things worse was the fact that our command staff at the time was not supportive of anybody who was not directly involved. And even then, they had a very negative outlook on anything. So I will say this, because I think the guy's a piece of shit. My sergeant at the time literally told us, hey, just suck it up. Don't bitch. And if anything, he criticized the officer involved, which was a very bad thing to do.
The one that was killed or the one that hit him? Or both?
Both.
What a fuckhead.
Yeah. He openly criticized him. I'm not going to get into that on here. But he was a piece of shit, basically telling us, hey, the officer that hit him needs to get his ass back to work. He's fucking you guys over by not carrying his load. So that further plants that seed of, if I'm ever involved in another critical incident, I just need to bury that shit deep down, because nobody wants to hear it. Nobody's going to show any compassion. Don't break down at work. So
sounds about right in 2009.
Yeah.
We have sound bites. Mesa PD, PIO.
I think it's an opinion.
That's the kind of bullshit that we think about.
I think it's an opinion.
Yeah. And that's the motherfuckers right there. You know, the guys that go out there and he probably wasn't even on scene. He was probably directing from the station, huh?
He was. He
yeah,
was
motherfucker.
You know, and like I said, this is minor. The only reason I like to point this out, it's something that happened very early in my career. And I don't want to be coddled, and I don't think anybody's looking for that. But maybe if somebody would have spoke to us in a different way, you could have released whatever you're feeling and then have a healthier, you know, whatever you want to call it, moving on, instead of just having this stuff buried deep down inside, not addressing it. And now fast forward 5 years later, I get involved in my own critical incident, and some of those feelings from 2009 start surfacing and getting mixed in with everything else.
Well, because it comes habitual.
Right.
You know, we're just stuffing it down. And then when the big shit happens, what the fuck are we going to do?
Exactly.
Stuff that shit down.
Culture.
Yep.
Culture. So moving to the next, as we roll into this next one, there's a 5-year gap there.
Right.
From that first critical incident, during the next 5 years, are you seeing anything that looking back were like alarm bells or something you should have paid attention to?
Yeah.
Were you drinking heavily? Were you?
I never drank, thankfully. If anything, actually, I stopped drinking during that time frame. I was a social drinker, and I chose to stop drinking. I'm very thankful on that decision, because it probably would have kicked my ass. But I did notice I was chasing that adrenaline that I felt that night. And that was something that, looking back, caused me a lot of headaches. I was taking too many calls I didn't have to take, trying to save some, you know, I'm getting senior. Right? So for everybody out there, I did 12 years straight on the same squad. I never transferred initially. So I was one of the senior guys on the squad. So I started taking all the bad calls that I could to try to save my squad mates from either having to see something or feel something.
And this is shortly thereafter that first critical incident.
Right.
Anything happening in home life? Does your wife notice anything after that first critical incident that you looking back on?
No.
Anger?
Not really anger at that point. I was starting to become more work driven. You know, kids, my daughters at this point are playing sports. I started missing several games, or if they had, let's say, a dance recital, you know, I had enough seniority and time off. I could have come to work late or take the night off, and I wouldn't. You know, I had to be there for the squad. I had to be there in case anything went down that night.
Yeah. Because if you weren't, then you'd start taking blame. Would it have been different?
Right.
Would you have felt regret if you weren't there?
Oh, absolutely. And that's going to play into the next critical incident.
So after that one, about 5 years goes by.
Right.
Relatively, I don't want to say normal, but a standard way of looking at your career.
Right. It was my new normal, which is just chasing the adrenaline every night.
Just being a cop.
Trying to get myself into more and more shit that I could find. And like you said, shit magnet. We all know cops that they know how to avoid work. And I was just, every night, my goal was to just find something worse than the last one.
Yeah. It's that high, Tony. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's like shooting heroin.
Mm-hmm.
Grab that tiger by the tail and you're gone. Constantly chasing that shit.
You know, you got to have that story that everybody remembers and everybody talks about, right?
You know, I don't know.
Fuck
It was.
that.
I don't know if it was that I had to tell anybody. With Ray, like he hit it like right in the head. I just wanted to be at work because I felt that one, if I wasn't there, the fucking city was going to fall apart, which was kind of arrogant, you know.
Yeah. Well, see, I think at the firehouse it was a little bit different because we would always have that late night coffee, you know, like, and they would all the elders would share their stories, you know, and so you almost churned and wanted that experience, you know,
Yeah.
and then when you get it, you're just like,
That's how you get salty, right?
never mind.
When you're a boot, you just like, I want that call. I want that
Exactly.
call.
Yeah, that probe, you know,
Yeah.
just that craver of everything.
And
you
I don't know if I don't know that it's any different for you guys than us, but this is straight heroin.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're doing what
100%.
Ray's talking about,
Fuck yeah.
you're just chasing it, right? And I always felt like if it was my RDO, my day off, something happened in my area, man, I was like, fuck, I missed that shot.
Oh, yeah.
That was my fucking injection right there.
Yep.
So nothing different at home. Still relatively normal. And we get to your second, which I know all of your stories, but this one has everything that could go wrong in it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty.
Like every fucking thing
That's a
that
good
could go
summary.
wrong.
Yeah.
You thought the first one was bad. So walk us through that second critical incident.
So let me tell you how that day started, because I think it matters on the mental shit that we put up with that the public doesn't see, or even our departments when they're trying to be supportive don't understand some of the personal stuff in your life, how now it kicks your ass during these critical incidents. So like I said, I work graveyards. I'm getting ready for work. I get ready about 5 p.m. And actually, let me backtrack 2 days. So 2 days prior, me and my wife had a conversation about me retiring, since both our daughters are now in high school. And, we're daydreaming. We're going to go live on the beach, have a great life. And that Sunday, I go grocery shopping. And there was just something in me. I just felt it. My wife had always said, hey, you're a great dad. You know, you got experience being a biological father. And so that Sunday, I go to the store, do some grocery shopping. I buy my wife some flowers and a card, and I come home and I say, you know what? Let's have a baby. If it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But let's give this a shot.
More adrenaline. More adrenaline.
So that's on Sunday. So fast forward 2 days later to Tuesday, 5 p.m. I'm getting ready for work. And I walk in, DPS here, we have take-home vehicles. So I'm getting ready at work. And I walk into my bathroom to get ready, and my wife and 2 daughters are in there, and they're kind of laughing. And there's a pregnancy test strip on the counter, and my wife's actually pregnant. So
2 days later.
2 days later, I work fast, guys. I work fast.
Fuck.
He's a Marine, bro. He's a fucking Marine. They get the job done. Yeah.
So here's why I bring it up. We kind of touched on this earlier. It's 5 p.m. Let's see. This is 2014. I've been on 7 years. I'm senior guy. Tons of time off. My wife and kids are like, "Hey, dude, take the day off, man. Let's celebrate. You're gonna be a dad.
Fuck yeah.
Right? What do?
Go to work.
I gotta go to work.
You gotta
man.
get that high.
The guys need me.
You gotta chase that tiger.
It's a Tuesday night. Graveyards overlaps on Tuesdays. It's the slowest night of the week. I could have taken the night off. But there's going to be some of the mind fuck that kicks in later, all these decisions we make, So going to work, working that night, we do chow about midnight. And, I tell my squad, hey guys, wife's pregnant. I'm going to be a dad, So I'm experiencing a pretty good high. I'm feeling pretty good. And like I said, it's a double squad night. It was our squad's turn to be in the office. So we're just knocking out paperwork. And about 2:57 a.m., one of my squad mates makes a traffic stop. And so one of these guys, he was a senior guy, and you get to learn people on the radio, and he gets on the radio car to car. It doesn't broadcast it to dispatch that he needs another unit. Well, we had another squad mate that was out patrolling that night, and he pipes up. And I won't mention his name. I don't want to make the guy feel bad. He was not the best officer. He's one of these guys we've all worked with. Doesn't take the job serious. Doesn't prepare mentally or any other way. Great guy, but you don't want him backing him up. So I'm at the office. I'm actually showing one of our new guys how to use these brand new computers we're using. So I'm on my vehicle, and I tell the new guy, hey, get out of my car. I'm going to go play. I'm going to go back up this other officer, because now he's making remarks of, hey, I got 5 people in the car. I got 2 males that are lying to me. And I think he mentions, that he sees gang tattoos. So I head over there to back him up. So as I show up on scene relatively fast, and
So real quick, not to cut you off, how far were you from where you were to where you had to get to?
maybe 2 miles.
So not far at all.
Not far at all.
Okay.
So we're talking like 1-2 minutes.
A couple minutes at the most.
Cool.
So I get there fairly quick, and he starts giving me a rundown of what's happening, and basically 2 females up front, 1 in the back seat in the middle, 2 guys on either corner of the back seat. Both of them are giving me false info. He can tell by the tattoos they're definitely gang members. He tells me that one of the guys flat out tells him, hey, I don't like cops. So I know these guys mean business. I always kind of took pride in, if I'm going to be a backup guy, I'm going to do my job right, So I tell him, hey, I'm going to take the passenger. So when you go deal with the first guy that was sitting behind the driver, as soon as you take him out and I see you going handcuffs on, I'm going to whip the door open and take the second guy out, not give him a chance.
Now, we don't ever second guess anybody here or anything, but can you kind of give us a layout of where everybody's at officer wise? Because we know everybody's in the car still.
Right. So everybody's still in their cars, and I'm having this conversation with the primary officer while he's still sitting in his vehicle. And I'm standing outside my vehicle because I want to keep an eye on this car. At this point, the third officer shows up and comes up next to me, and I give him a rundown of what's going to happen. So now he's the third officer on scene. So for anybody that's not, in the police field, if you're going to be the third unit, then you're going to go help out the primary. So you want 2 guys on one side and 1 on the other.
Good contact cover.
So we go ahead, we approach the vehicle. I take the, secondary side, and I'm eyes on the vehicle the whole time, and the third officer bumps into me. And I look over my shoulder.
He's on your side?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Fucking.
So I look at him, what the fuck are you doing? Go around to the other side. So he goes over to the other side. So the reason for the stop on this vehicle, too, was black tint. I mean, just blacked out all the way around. So I'm standing on the passenger side window, and I got my flashlight pointed inside the vehicle, but I can't see anything. So I get to the point where I literally put my flashlight on the window, and I can't see anything. So this actually, for some reason that night, starts kind of spooking me out. I start getting a little nervous, and I remember I actually started backing up a little bit, and I put my body kind of following the contour of the C-pillar. Yeah. Because I just started getting a little wigged out, and, we've all experienced that.
That gut.
Yeah, and I'm so glad I took that feeling serious. So yeah, I'm literally leaning against the vehicle too. I just wanted to just be leaning against it in case a shot happened to ring out. I wouldn't get hit with something shattering. So I can hear the primary officer talking. And for all the cops on here, we all have some sort of spiel. Hey, I know you're lying. Give me your real name. I'm not gonna, give you the extra charge, et cetera, whatever it is. And he's giving that guy that, hey, if you have a warrant, just tell me your name. I'm going to end up hooking you up anyway. Fingerprint you. We're just wasting time. So at that point, the passenger who's sitting behind the driver, I believe, starts giving him a false social. And I happen to look over because I almost felt like a sense of relief. Like, okay, we're not going to have to fight these guys. So I happen to look over at the primary officer, who puts his head down to start writing in the notepad. And I see a muzzle flash. And then I hear the boom. And he takes a .357 round point blank to the face. Ugh. So Manny mentioned I'm a Marine. We got this saying in the Marine Corps, if you take a headshot on somebody, anything that's left is a pink mist. That literally went through my head at that moment. I just saw a pink mist because I literally saw that muzzle flash just engulf his entire head. And boom, he's gone. Just disappears from my sight. So I said I was leaning against the car. I see his face get blown away. I have to push off, and I just start putting rounds into the car. And now I'm taking a tactical retreat towards cover as I'm putting rounds into the vehicle. So I do notice that officer number 3, who was standing inches away from officer number 1, is frozen solid.
He just stuck there.
He's just stuck there. He's looking down at the officer that's laying on the ground, dead. So he's just frozen. And at this point, now I hear the vehicle start, and it's about to take off. So I have to do some well-aimed shots. I'm retreating tactfully backwards, and I have to make sure I'm on target, because if I miss a couple inches to the left, now I'm going to hit the third officer.
Fuck.
So I make it back to my vehicle, and this vehicle takes off. And we were inside a hotel parking lot. So it's got to drive through the parking lot, go underneath a little awning, and then it disappears from sight. So here's the first moment I got. We talked about it earlier. What do I do?
Right.
I got criticized by numerous people. Do I jump in my patrol vehicle and chase these guys down? Or do I render first aid? So
now going back, 5 years, you're making another fucking incredibly difficult decision.
Right.
What's the third officer doing at this point?
At this point, he finally starts running, and he takes cover behind the first officer's vehicle. So I have to make this split-second decision. And the one thing that influenced me was a couple things. I think every good cop should talk to his squad mates. So I had numerous conversations with the officer that had been shot. We'd had conversations in the past of the reality of one of us getting shot one day, possibly killed. And we promised each other that we would never let each other die on this Phoenix ground. We said it. We don't want our wives to look at the news and see our body laying on this ground. So that was one thing that went through my head. The second thing, this is in October. Well, in January of that same year, I put myself through EMT school. I just wanted to further my medical skills. So I felt, even though I knew he just took a round to the face and he's dead, if there's any shot of saving this guy, I'm his best choice. Fire's not going to get there fast enough. We can't just do, I got criticized for this also. I can't just throw him in my car. Anybody who's taking a headshot, you can't move.
No.
They need to be immobilized. They got to be backboarded, because if the shot didn't kill him, you moving him can kill him.
Right.
I mean, I'm making these decisions in thousandths of a second. So I choose to stay. That's my decision. I know we have a plate on the vehicle. We have descriptions. So I figured we have a good shot of finding these people. I'm his only shot. So I put out the shots fired call, and I immediately run out towards him. So he's laying on the ground. So when he got shot, he fell backwards, and he's on the ground, and I check for a pulse, and he's dead. He's flatlined at this point. And I don't know if it's desperation or denial. I just start screaming his name. And I'm trying not to shake him violently, but I'm trying to shake him, hoping that if there's anything left in him, he's gonna wake up. So he kind of flutters a little bit, and a lot of us know what we call that death gasp. We've all had these dead bodies where it's just a body expelling that last bit of air. And he did that.
Guppiness.
Yep. And that's what I thought I just heard. I'm like, great. I just heard his death gasp and I'm straddling his body. So he's laying on his back. I'm straddling his body. So I hear what I think is a death gasp. So now I start checking him because I can see the entrance wound. So I start checking the back of his head for an exit wound, because I know if I felt pure mush, he's done. So I'm cradling his head in my hands, and I'm feeling around trying to find an exit wound. I'm not finding one, which makes me feel optimistic. And I'm still yelling his name out, and he kind of starts opening his eyes. I'm like, holy shit. I think this guy just kind of came back. And about that very same time that he opens up his eyes, I hear tires screeching behind me. And I think to myself, this is too soon for my secondary units to have gotten here. Because like I said, I'm like 2 miles away. So I turn and look over my shoulder, and I see a blue car. I'm like, holy fuck. That looks like the car that we just shot it out with. And as I'm thinking that, the passenger in the back is sticking out of the window and starts shooting at me. And I'm like, holy fuck, it is the same car. They fucking came back.
You are fucking kidding me.
So now I'm like, holy shit, I got an officer that might still be alive or barely clinging on to life. And now we're taking rounds. So any rounds that don't hit me might hit him. And I can't drag him. So I roll off his body and I start putting rounds back on the car. And as the car comes around, it pulls up parallel to me and starts slowing down. So I have to assume there's 5 people in the car. There's 5 guns. I'll never know how many guns were in there, but that's what I had to assume at that moment. So when I rolled off of him, started putting rounds back on the car, I take a knee, and I realized I'm very exposed. I'm in the middle of a parking lot. So I start running towards cover, and not towards my patrol vehicle, but towards cover. And I probably take about 3 steps. I'm telling myself, this is going to hurt. I'm going to take a round, but got to keep running. And I feel like, hey, I'm like 10, 15 feet away. I'm not going to make it to cover. I'm going to get taken out because they're visibly slowing down. So at that point, I make a decision, fuck these guys. If they're going to take me out, they're going to have to look at me. So I turn around and I face them, start putting more rounds back on the vehicle, and now I start walking sideways towards cover. And I think that's a good decision because once I did that and started putting more rounds back in the vehicle, they finally took off for good that time. So let me backtrack a second. When I looked over my shoulder and realized that car had come back, that third officer was behind cover. And I thought to myself, holy shit, he ran really fast. Well, I didn't realize till later he had never left cover. So when I came out to check on my buddy, he was still hiding behind cover. So talking about not being mentally prepared, great example.
A fucking Marine mindset right there.
Fuck, man.
So I put it out on the radio. They just did a drive-by on me. They came back through. So now I run back out there. I start yelling at the third officer, get your ass out here. Now I go back into that Marine mentality. Now I have to take a chance on moving this body. They've come back twice. I've put a lot of rounds in that car. I'm pretty sure I hit somebody, which I did. So I'm thinking, hey, they might come back a third time, try to finish this off.
Yeah.
So we got to get this body out of here. We got to get him behind cover. So I yell at the third officer, fucking grab his legs, and we just basically do a body drag and get him behind cover. So I do that, get him behind cover, and then we just got to go into first aid mode again. So I'm doing these transitions. This also really fucks with your head. I go from shooting to life-saving, shooting to life-saving. And so I get him behind cover, and I get him to wake up. He's awake. He's still breathing. So you got to be honest to your guys. They're fighting for their life at this point. So I don't ask him if he's okay. None of that bullshit. I ask him, do you know you've been shot? He's like, yep. I know you're in a lot of pain, but I need to know what hurts the most. And he tells me I can't breathe. Okay, good. We got a place to start. Open up his mouth. Holy fuck, man. It's like looking into a picture of hell, So when the round went in, it blew out the entire roof of his mouth, took out all the teeth on one side of his face, destroyed his cheekbone. So he's sitting on his back with all this in his throat. So he can't breathe. He's got no airway in his nostril. So I tell the other guy, we can't just flip him over. We got to do a complete body roll. We got to fucking basically do a C-spine. You got to hold his head and we got to roll him. And not that this matters. I always wore patrol gloves, and I would have done it with no gloves, but I'm gloved up a little bit. And basically I just open his mouth and we roll him over, and I'm just scooping up cartilage and blood and teeth and just scooping it all out of his mouth so that he can start breathing again. So once I do that, roll him back, I get back on the radio. I want dispatch to update fire. Hey, let fire know he's been shot in the head. Because I don't need them coming out with EKGs and bags. I need a board and transport. Exactly. And we all kid fire. And this is on my to-do list, and it's been years, and I got to get around to it. The first engine that showed up on scene. So we always give fire tons of shit. They only have one speed, slow, right? When you tell them to expedite, we'll get there when we get there.
A little slower.
Is the scene safe?
It's safe.
Right. They did ask that. That's my one bad. The one thing I had too much stuff mentally going on. They did ask if the scene was safe. And understandably, they've just heard, a drive-by happen. So
Right.
I don't blame them. Fire shows up. The engine's not even at a complete stop, and that fucking engineer jumps out, and he's fucking running towards us. I've never seen a firefighter run. I'm not bullshitting. That fucking guy was running, comes over. I tell him, we need a fucking board, and he just books it. He's gone. I think by the time the driver got the truck stopped, he already had the board off of there. And then he yelled at us to take his gear off. So we start taking his gear off. I go operational. I take over the radio. because nobody's on scene. We only got a couple secondary units showing up. So I just get on the radio. Hey, I need units to do this. I need units to shut this down, units to do that. And I'm probably talking on the radio like a good 15 seconds, and I just lost it. And I stopped talking. And that's when my adrenaline finally started, dumping.
It dumped.
And I got off the radio. I remember I got up. They're boarding him at this point. I'm starting to feel that flood of emotions, but I don't know how to release them. I'm not at home. I'm not in front of my kids. I got all my junior squad mates there looking at me. So I just walked away, and I remember the urge to just punch this car. I walked by this car, and I just had this urge to just punch the window, and no, I got to keep it professional. We're probably going back to 5 years earlier.
Right. That's what you've been taught.
Right. You got to keep that shit professional.
Tuck that shit away, right?
So I just walked away.
So
Shit.
heavy. I've heard your story many times, Ray, and I can feel the emotion. And for the people listening, Ray's been coming to Pistol for a while. He was pretty optimistic, skeptic. We'll get to that in a bit, but before I say, I was going to say he's survived.
So he ends up surviving, and that's just great. But that was a very tough morning. So he goes into surgery. I'm on scene. I forgot how many hours. I was on scene for a very long time before I got to go to the hospital. So he's still circling the drain because he had something like 7 surgeries in the first couple hours because they could only work on him so much because he had so much internal bleeding. So they do a surgery, control the bleeding, let the body kind of start recovering, and on to the next surgery. So I think he was in ICU for like the first 3 days. It's a little touch and go at that time.
Right. So if you guys forgot, you were listening. Hours earlier, Ray had just found out he was going to be a dad.
Right.
So you went from an incredible high to the very bottom you could possibly get to. I'm assuming that's the worst that I can imagine.
It was, and how stupid this sounds and how the mind works. A few days earlier, I think that weekend, we had gone and bought a pool table, which is something I've wanted since I was a kid. And oddly enough, it was being delivered that morning. So after the shooting's over, I'm waiting for the debrief. I grab my phone and I call my wife. So throughout the years working graveyards this long, my wife knew if I wasn't home on time and she couldn't get a hold of me on the phone, she would turn the news on. I've been on the news several times. So I didn't want her seeing this on the news because she was going to probably expect the worst. So I call her to let her know, hey, I've been in a shooting. I'm okay. But hey, you can't go to work today because we're having a pool table delivered. And this is so stupid. And if nobody's home, it's a $500 fee. So you need to call and sit. I'm not thinking to myself. I'm not thinking I'm going to need to vent this when I get home. It's like, no. We can't miss our pool delivery.
You're like, I just don't want that fucking fine.
Yeah, $500. That's no joke.
Fucking mind is nuts.
Wow.
That was my biggest concern at that moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, for those of you guys that have been following us and listened to Tanya's podcast, and we gave Tanya a lot of shit about the person that would walk in and she'd immediately start crying. It was this fuck here. Every time she'd walk in, these two guys, her and Ray, would just break down, and ultimately cause everyone else to break down. And at some point, I'd like to have both you and Tanya on at the same time. And as you can see, that if you haven't, Ray, if you listen to Tanya's, she talks about what she saw, what she thought occurred, and what didn't occur. But you talk about that. What I was going to say previously before you wrap that up was, for as long as we've been doing Pistol, we had Ray and that officer meet up. They had never talked about it, and that officer did come and has come to Pistol. And I can tell you that was by far the hardest group we had ever put on. There wasn't a dry eye in that room, and I swear to God, the devil came in and took out all the fucking wind from it. It was not. It was just bad. It was bad, but it was good because we got a lot of insight. which helped us understand a little bit more. And on that insight, Ray, something Tanya had said resonates, and I think you guys may have talked about it in the past, but what did you struggle with after that? Amongst all the other shit that we know you struggled with, what was the hardest part?
There were several. Probably one of the hardest ones is I think a word that nobody ever likes to use is I was very scared when I came back. Police officers, I know for myself, I always mentally prepared myself to get shot, and I always expected myself to get shot in the vest, and I would prepare myself for like, okay, if you're going to take it in the limb, it's going to hurt. I taught myself throughout the years to use both hands. And to see somebody get shot in the face, and I don't remember the number. At one point I knew it's 1 out of 3-point-something million people that actually survived getting shot in the face. So it made you scared, or it made me scared. It was very hard to continue to be a cop and walk up on vehicles and people. All I could picture was that muzzle blast engulfing his head. And that was tough, because who can you tell that you work with that you're scared?
Oh, yeah.
That's not a word you can use at work. So you just got to suck it up and keep going. Because not only do you not want to tell somebody you're scared, potentially you might plant that seed in their head. And also it can make them doubt you now as their backup. Holy shit, Ray's going to back me up.
Right.
Is he going to have a fucking meltdown?
Fuck, I don't know, man. You fucking engage those dudes. I think even if you were scared, I'd want you there. Let me ask you, Tony.
Not gonna lie, dude. That's fucking badass of you to just walk to that car and
fucking
shoot the fuck
heavy,
out of it.
heavy.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. That's pretty badass.
Real quick, before I ask Ray the next question, from a firefighter perspective, what are you guys processing at that point? Are you shutting shit down, like in feeling wise, as you're rolling in?
So as we're pulling up, yeah, you're like you said, that guy that came jumping out. He had already seen what the fuck was going on, so he knows. Then, hey, we need C-spine, like you said,
right.
We need airway, breathing, circulation.
Yep.
Boom. So that's exactly what we're identifying is, hey, motherfucker, get me this, and then we're out. Diesel injection to the hospital.
Right.
So yeah, so you had every.
What are your feelings?
Feeling wise, you don't feel until
you just go into
after. It's all muscle memory. It truly is. I don't know about you guys, but they would in the academy put us under a hood backwards, and we would have to do shit blind, just because it has to be our movement that we're feeling. It has to be what we're doing that we are reacting on, not just our vision,
Right.
So yeah, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but that's what it is it's just muscle memory. We got to do this. We got to tube them. We got to get 2 IVs. We got to get them on the ambulance. We got to get them the fuck out of here. Boom.
Then afterwards?
That's when the dump comes,
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck did I just do? I don't remember doing anything.
Did I do the right
thing?
thing?
Did I do the right thing? Did this guy survive? Or did I just kill him, with something that I did?
Right.
And, who the fuck else is hurt? That's the other part. So not only do you see one guy down, you then see 3 guys up around the dead guy, but what other victims are there? So like you said, there's a lot of shit going on in everybody's head, and it's about just making that gut decision. And that's what's so fucking crazy about it, is that gut is something you always listen to.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and it's funny you touch on muscle memory. So from first shooting to second shooting was 37 seconds. And I'm just going off the radio because the radio call. That first shooting was by the numbers, textbook muscle memory. So you heard me say I was leaning on the car. I had my flashlight out. It took me a while to realize I holstered my flashlight as I was shooting. Just muscle memory of years of training. I would literally practice that, to be holding a flashlight and start to put it away in my carrier as I'm drawing out with my other hand.
Right.
That first shooting was a textbook academy drill shooting. The second shooting was all instinct and self-training. My mindset was different. Like I mentioned the Marine Corps. When I went out to him the second time, it's, okay, fuck medical. I have to take the chance on hurting him now, because now getting him behind cover has become a bigger priority than maybe hurting him.
Yeah.
So it was, in my mind, and this took a long time to process and a lot of doctors and a lot of meetings at Pistol and other places. I really did experience 2 shootings. A lot of people say no.
100%,
You had
yeah.
1 shooting. People, and it's amazing how much shit people talk. You know, they didn't do a drive-by on you. What these idiots did when they pulled out of this hotel, they made a wrong turn and got themselves stuck in the parking lot. So they had to circle around the building just to get out of there. So, I mean, people were like, well, they didn't do a drive-by on you. They were just exiting and decided to shoot.
It's still a fucking.
Yeah, exactly. You
2
know,
shootings.
Are we serious?
Yeah.
So I've had people tell me, you weren't in 2 shootings. Okay, I don't care. You know, but that doesn't help you when your mind is going a million different directions. People reading the CAD call. So for any cops out there that might be listening, don't be that guy. I had friends pull up on scene. Why the fuck did you show up to a gunfight without having your rifle out? Well, what are you guys talking about? So, yeah, the muscle memory was there for the first shooting. The second shooting was just a whole different world. I mean, to me, it was an ambush.
Right.
I was
It was
involved in-
absolutely an ambush.
Well, and think about, okay, so the motherfuckers that have the questions, man, I just never get that. But that's what I'm saying is like, think about that. Being in that fucking situation, your awareness is through the roof. You're probably head on a swivel already. Yeah, I'd be fucking prepared to, you know, like I'm going to go at them too. You know, like
Right.
I hate
He had
fucking
2
questions
critical
like that.
incidents at the same
That
time.
is bullshit.
Minutes
Oh my
apart.
God.
So one of the things that I was going to ask you about is you had said in the past and in the beginning that you had a hard time talking to that officer because in your mind, he was dead.
Right. So that's been years of therapy and working on it myself. Let me backtrack. Remember that first incident I talked about when that officer hit the other officer with his patrol vehicle? You know, he screamed into the radio. So that planted a seed in my head. When I would hear officers scream on the radio, I struggled with it. So now fast forward to this incident, my mind saw this officer dead because he was dead. He was flatlined. So when he survives, he comes back to work. I don't know how many months later. He decides to come back to work. They put him on the same squad. So now we're working side by side again. And I would struggle. I would see him at chow. And my brain, like people don't understand, it wasn't me. It wasn't Ray thinking it. My brain was telling me, you're looking at a dead guy. And when I would hear his voice on the radio, you're hearing a dead guy on a radio. That's not something I was willfully choosing
You're not
to
trained
do.
for that shit.
Fuck.
You know?
That's haunting.
Yeah.
So, and like Manny mentioned, you know, we eventually had a one-on-one during one of these pistol meetings, and I was able to voice them because a lot of people think, oh, you guys are best friends. No, we're not best friends, because I still struggle with many events from that night, and my brain to this day still struggles when I see him or hear him. You know, I'm looking at a dead guy because that's the image that's now permanently ingrained in my brain. You know, I have a dead officer on the ground, and I'm straddling his body with my hands wrapped around his head.
Right.
I can never get rid of that image.
Yeah. And that's what Tanya talks about when those are what her nightmares are made of. One of the things, not to speak for that officer, but I have talked to that officer in the past, and he has given me permission to make certain statements or even talk on his behalf. I'm sure he'd come on. But one of the hardest things for me, and after that meeting, that really hit us pretty hard that we don't talk about is in that meeting, and I'll try not to get too emotional, we wanted the officers that got shot, his perspective. And I remember Ray, we were sitting there, and he said, and this was the hardest part to hear, was he looked at Ray, and he said, you know, I took a round, I got shot in the face. And that's all he remembers. He just remembers the flash, and then he's in the hospital. And what fucked most of us up that day was that he had looked at Ray and he said, I would never want to, I'd never want to see what you saw. And, you know, we talk about when your partners get hurt or, you know, and he was very frank, and he said, you know, for him it was a flash, and he woke up in the hospital. But Ray had to watch that play out and continues. So that was rough to listen to. And it was early on with Pistol. We weren't prepared. We actually had a doctor, a psychologist, and we were just a fucking train wreck. So, hopefully you guys are out there. Listen, don't make these statements to these guys like, why don't you have your fucking AR at a gunfight? Ray didn't know it was going to be a fucking gunfight, So not to cut that story short, because we can always come back when Tanya's on, but you had mentioned earlier that your wife had said something about retiring. DPS doesn't make that much fucking money to retire in year 10. So you decide, against probably your better judgments, as most of us, you decide to keep working.
Right.
And all this time, you meet a doctor who tells you to come to Pistol, and you're skeptical. And for those of you guys listening that don't know anything too much about Pistol, Ray shows up in full uniform, fucks everybody up. Everybody's in plain clothes. This fuck shows up in his full gear, and he tries to convince us that he's okay. And the whole time in the meeting, he's finger fucking his gun. Because he's got one of those level 3 holsters. You got to hit the button and twist it and then shake your ass to get it out. And he's like, no, I'm good. And we're like trying to calm Ray down in the corner over there.
He's got the nervous tick.
Yeah, he's completely fucked. So it took you like a year, almost 18 months before you reached out to us. And even then, he would say in group, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of this shit, But you put in the work, and that made huge difference. So you decide to stay on, and what occurs?
So I made a pretty big mistake in all this, which is, well, let me get to the good part. I got the help I needed. I eventually broke down, and like you said, I called Pistol. I still remember the day I called Pistol. I remember everything about that day. To make that decision went against everything I've been taught as a kid, as a young adult, everything I was taught in the Marine Corps, everything I was taught in the police world. I asked for help. That's a big no-no. So I remember that day I called. I don't sugarcoat nothing. I felt like a fucking bitch. I used to have this saying. I don't know if you remember bringing this up. And I felt like I was so proud I came up with this saying. If you need help with your problems, that in itself is a problem.
Well, yeah.
Holy fuck, do I feel like an idiot for ever saying that, But that's just how we're either raised, how we're brought up. This actually started seeing a doctor, and I tried the meds. I tried no meds. I tried different doctors. I went to a retreat in California. I started doing really good. And then I made the fatal mistake of doing too good. I thought, hey, now that I'm actually talking about my problems and now that I'm seeing doctors, I can take on a lot of trauma because I know how to process this. And I'm being sarcastic.
Right.
Because I started taking too much on. And remember I told you guys earlier, I always tried keeping some of this trauma away from my coworkers. I took it too far. If there was a fatal, no, I got it, guys. I got it. If there was a bad guy that needed to be dealt with, I was going to take the lead. So I just started taking on too much trauma. And my wife, she started noticing it after a little while. She's like, hey, you're kind of doing a little too much. And I would always say, well, I'm going to my meetings and I'm seeing the doctor and I'm okay. I was taking too much on. So that led me to my third critical incident, which is we had an officer killed. It's been a couple years now. He was killed by a pedestrian on I-10 in Avondale, if anybody remembers.
Edenhofer.
Yeah, Tyler Edenhofer. So once again, lots of shit talkers during that incident. I wasn't there when he was killed. I was on my way home. So throughout the years, I became an armor. So I was doing armor duty that day, and I'm on my way home, and he's on a traffic stop. And this young guy, great guy, I taught some of his classes at Academy, and we were doing some like scenarios, and people in Academy always fuck off during these scenarios, and he stuck out because he actually tried. He took his shit serious. He was a Navy veteran, And so I knew him from academy, and one of my friends was his field trainer. So I'm on my way home. I pull off the freeway, and they're on a traffic stop. So I stop by, and I see him. And I'm not going to sit here again, and I'm not going to make myself a victim. I knew him. I was not his friend. I knew him. I'd had numerous interactions with him. But he was a good up-and-coming trooper. And 2 hours later, he's killed, you know. And I get the phone call because my squad mate, or my former squad mate, is his field trainer. So they're like, hey, he's been involved in a shooting. We don't know if he's hurt as well. So throughout the years, from pistol meetings and everything else, I got really involved with the PTSD side of stuff, and I got myself on the peer support team. And so I self-dispatched myself to the hospital that night. Once again, and I'm pointing that I got criticized for this stuff because I don't think people realize what the fuck they're doing when they're constantly criticizing. They just have no idea.
Right.
So
Yeah, they have no fucking clue.
from personal experience, from already having another officer killed in line of duty before, and then me being involved in a shooting, I just dispatched myself. I don't need command staff to tell me I should go. I know I should go. So I go to the hospital. I deal with this, and I'm going to point this out, and I won't be too graphic. I don't want to fuck anybody up. So he's dead in the hospital, and the first detective shows up to the hospital. He has to process him. And that officer was actually a friend of mine. So I start helping him out. And then we get to the part where, since he was, killed in line of duty, we got to take his uniform for evidence. So, he's one of our own. I can't let a nurse do it, And I tell the nurse to give me the scissors, and I cut his uniform off. And that was tough, man. I started crying. There was about 4 other officers in that room. Nobody wanted to step up and help. I don't blame them. That was horrendous. And I remember looking at my buddy, the detective, and telling him, I literally said, this is going to fuck me up. So I cut his uniform off, and we got to move him into a viewing room. And so I draped the American flag on him. Sorry, I'm kind of struggling with this one because this is the final one that I'm, still working on. So I wheel him into the viewing room, and I can hear his family. His family's right down the hall, and he's covered in a decent amount of blood. So I asked the nurse for some solution and some towels. I don't want his family to have to see him this way, So I take a sponge and some towels, and I give him a quick sponge bath. I want him presentable for his family, and I got to tell you guys, being shot at, seeing another officer get killed, there was just something about that moment. I knew deep down inside I was done after that. That was a horrendous moment. I hope nobody ever experiences. But so to kind of answer what you said, to me, I put myself in that situation because I felt I had the tools and the resources to do it. And I failed to realize that you got to stop at some point and take care of yourself with all these tools and resources.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't doing it, Did it need to be done? In my opinion, yes. Would I do it again, even though I know the outcome? Absolutely. I think it's the least, for what the family has to experience. I'd do it again. But yeah, that was kind of final straw for me on that one.
And you still fought it. You still fucking fought it.
I did.
I remember you calling, asking questions, and I'm like, Ray, it's time, bro.
So I go back, that was a Tuesday, and we do the funeral that week. And you're right, I called you that week. And then we do the funeral on Friday. I had my normal 3 days off. I go back to work on Tuesday. Not too many people know this. I don't think I've told you this yet. So we had this guy that I'd gone through academy with 12 years earlier. And he's just a lazy officer. So they temporarily assigned him to graveyards. And he wanted him to ride with me so he could gain experience. So he rides with me that first night, and he brings up, hey, did you go to the funeral? I was like, of course. Did you? He's like, no. And I look at him like, why the fuck not? He's like, well, I got my uniform ready. I shine my boots. And that morning of the funeral, I go to put my tie on. And I guess the last time I put it away, I folded and it had a big old crease going through it. So I didn't want to look like shit at the funeral, so I just didn't go.
You're fucking kidding me.
That hit me. I wanted to punch the guy.
I was gonna say, did you blow up on this motherfucker?
I'd have kicked him out of the fucking car.
I would have eject buttoned him.
You know, I just had to bury this guy that nobody had anything bad to say about him. You know, he was a new guy, 2 days away. I think he was on his next to last day of field training.
You only had like 50 days on, bro, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in field training.
He was still in field
He had
training.
1 day left. It was his next to last day, and he'd be off of field training.
It was,
I totally remember this.
So that night hits me hard. We end up not patrolling. I can't patrol with this guy in my car. I go to the office. I just tell him I got paperwork to do. So that's a Tuesday night. And by Wednesday, the next day, I'm telling my wife as I'm getting ready for work, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I jump in my patrol vehicle, and I'm driving into my area to go pick up this piece of shit because he's got to ride with me again. And I call my wife, and I'm like, I can't do it. I'm having a fucking nervous breakdown in the car, you know. So she tells me, you know, she's always been very supportive, and she tells me, just quit. We'll figure it out, man. We don't care. Whatever we got to do, we'll figure it out. So I say, okay. So I call my captain, tell her meet me at the office, and I show up, and literally, you know, stupid shit we see in movies. I took my badge off, and I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm gonna fucking kill myself. Well, I won't get too involved in that. Luckily, she tries to save my career. She knew about my history with the department, you know, that I've been a good trooper, and she sends me home. She lets me go home. She lets me drive myself home. You know, I just told her I'm going to kill myself, and she lets me go home, which is good, you know, because that's demeaning if I would have had my vehicle taken away and give me your gun. So she takes a chance. It was a chance on her part, and she lets me go home. Just drive your ass home. Take the rest of the week off. Take some sick time. I'll call you. I'm gonna get you reassigned. And she did. Still didn't learn my lesson. So now I get to a detective spot.
Oh no.
And I feel useless because I've always been go, go, go. And now I'm responding to scenes instead of being the guy causing the scene. So now I'm starting to feel useless.
worthless.
Worthless. Now I'm seeing some pretty gory shit, you know, having to go to a few dead people calls where it's not 5 minutes. You're in there for hours, you know, and picking up body parts. And the final straw was we go serve a search warrant on the Chomo, and SWAT wasn't available. So we called our part-time SWAT team in, and I look at my sergeant, who was a friend of mine, and I tell him, hey, these guys are fucking rookies. Let me go in on this.
What the fuck?
And he knew he shouldn't have said yes, but he knew where my head was at. So he tells me, go ahead, you know, and I take the lead, and I go in, you know, and I'm sweating bullets, guys. I mean, I'm literally sweat's pumping off of me, and I walk out that house. We process the scene, and later on I tell him, don't ever fucking let me do that again. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And then that was when I finally realized I just can't do this anymore. I got to hang it up. So, yeah.
So how long after that did you hang it up?
Within, I think immediately.
Wow.
Yeah.
Along the way though, if you understand Ray like I do, he maps everything out like a good Marine. He looks at all the options.
Strategy.
Needless to say, we had Chipotle quite a bit. You know, he's asking, what about these numbers and this numbers, and what about this and that? And, you know, I could see in his face, you know, it was time. I try to be as honest as possible. Well, it wasn't tired.
Like that.
You know, crazy sees crazy. You know, Tony?
Yeah, that like
You just see it in
time's
him.
up.
Like, it takes your soul away. Not that he's, you know, soulless or doesn't care. You're just jagged, you're broken, and you're just existing.
Right.
And you know, when you get to that level, like you said, I think all of us are here because we don't have that quit mentality. You know, my dumbass tells, oh, I can do that. And then I end up in the hospital because I'm pushing the limits again because I feel better. Right. And Ray and I both attended West Coast post-trauma retreat. I think it's First Responder Network.
Right.
Now. Great program. But we get cocky. Right. It's not like Ray's the only one. I did it. We push it as far as we can.
it becomes just checking off a list instead of
Right.
actually doing it for the fucking purpose, right?
Right.
That's kind of, I get
And then
that.
you feel as though you were beat, right? Like you got defeated somehow.
Right.
You let your squad down. You know, Ray's probably one of the best guys I've ever met when it comes to being honest and up forward. But he's also got that side of him that doesn't allow you to get to him to tell him it's okay to hang it up. You know, and I think most of us like that. And you know, I asked him to come on the podcast, and you know, I was expecting him to say, "Yeah, I'll come on the podcast, but you guys are still bullshit." You know? That's the kind of shit that he'd say. You know, I don't know if I'm buying into this right now.
I don't know about this.
But you know, Ray, you know, showing up to Pistol and putting in the work. What for those that are struggling now? What advice? Even if I said to you, what would you give your younger self, your rookie advice? What would you say?
You know, it sounded lame, and even well, like you said, I'll admit it to this day. There's days I still question it, but being able to voice what I'm feeling makes a big difference on how I feel and process everything. Yeah, being able to get it out of your system and cry. You know, I just cried right now a little bit. I don't hide my tears. I let them out. I feel a little bit better when I do versus that constant trying to swallow all that shit down and, you know, and voicing it. And here's the other one we didn't touch on. I'll make this one super quick. We got to go back to that shooting I had. One thing I didn't mention was, so I did, with these 5 people in the car, I did end up shooting a couple of them. And one of the guys I shot, you want to talk about a small world, his sister-in-law actually worked with my wife. So the detectives have to go interview my wife, and while they're interviewing her, we believe this guy's sister-in-law took my wife's driver's license out of her wallet and got her address. Because these people, it was an 8-day manhunt to find these 5 people. So my department eventually had to put us in a hotel, basically had to put us into hiding until they captured all 5 of them. So you want to talk, you know, everybody talks about, I don't bring my work home, which is bullshit in itself. Because our spouses, significant others, they see that look on your face.
Right.
They know something went down, right? But I was still in that denial of I don't bring work home. I mean, I really brought it home. You know, I had to put my family into hiding because of my job.
Right.
And not being able to voice that. So, I don't know, I guess to kind of answer your question, yeah, to me it really helped eventually. You know, I went to pistol meetings, I don't know how many months, and I'm good, guys. I don't want to talk.
Yeah. Finger fucking your holster.
Yep.
And then that one day when I finally broke down and I just started talking and talking and talking, it was like I felt my body felt some relief. Even if I didn't really feel it, I felt like my body just like, fuck, that's a heavy load I've been carrying.
Yeah.
You know, for any hikers, you know, you got that big ass pack and you finally drop it. Whatever analogy you want to use, that's what it felt like.
That is stress load.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is.
Yeah. And Ray was notorious for that. Ray would constantly, he's great help, and he's a plethora of knowledge in what not to do and how to correct it, because he's corrected it. And that was a heavy podcast. So I appreciate you coming out, Ray and Tony.
Yeah,
But
man.
real quick,
Great meeting you. Fuck.
Yeah.
real quick before we wrap it up, there's a story I want you to talk about. You mentioned you don't take it, you don't take your job home with you. Can you tell us the story about, because you love In-N-Out and Chipotle, but In-N-Out by far is the best. But ultimately, the child that you were excited about that night on the shooting, your wife, it was the second child, right? The 4-year-old?
Yeah, so my wife initially, so I didn't take anybody's advice of getting help after that shooting. So my wife was pregnant, so we just focused on the pregnancy. That's what I was going to use to help me get over everything. So my wife actually miscarried that go around. So that's when my world really fell apart. So that created a lot of issues. And then I just had a bad run-in multiple times at In-N-Out, of all places. In-N-Out dealt with the aggression. I didn't know how to release it. And I don't know if this story you're referring to, I'm at In-N-Out one day. I'm in a drive-through line in my patrol vehicle, and this kid comes walking out, and he's openly carrying, and he's just trying to fuck with me. So he keeps putting his hand on his gun and kind of looking at me sideways. And I told Manny this, if that fucking guy knew what mental state I was in at that moment, he would not be here today.
Yeah. Again, these are the things that as time goes on, you start to realize you shouldn't be in those positions. So the In-N-Out story, that was the In-N-Out story that I was referring to, but there's also another one that's quite humorous to levy it off as we wrap up, and that's when your wife had called and asked for In-N-Out, and you were at your height of anger.
I was at my anger, and I couldn't control it, and so I'm on my way home, and I'm asking her what she wants from In-N-Out, and I know what she wants. She always gets the same thing, but she's not responding to my text. So I pull into In-N-Out. I'm going through the drive-thru. She still hasn't responded, and I'm so mad at the world that I'm like, fuck her. She can't reply to a text. She doesn't get fucking In-N-Out. So I order In-N-Out. I ate it on the fucking way home and came walking in with my In-N-Out cup. Fuck you, chick. I got In-N-Out. You didn't because you can't reply to a text.
What was she doing, Ray?
I don't remember.
She was sleeping.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She was resting from the anger that Ray had generated.
She's like, I had some peace and fucking quiet.
This is what we talk about when we're like, so these are lessons learned as what not to do. And in that instance, when Ray talks about not taking the job home with you, that's what we do to our spouses, right? And next week we are going to have the spouses on, and I'm going to be facilitating, so I'm going to take a lot of rounds in that one. But that's a prime example of the kind of fucked up mentality we're in, right? And I remember that following week in group, Ray had come in, and he couldn't figure out what he had done wrong. He was trying to figure out, why is it my fault that she didn't respond to the text? And he actually has the audacity to tell us, well, I got In-N-Out because I knew what I wanted. And we said, well, she gets the same thing every time.
Well, and I know we got to wrap it up, but I really want to give you one more In-N-Out story, and I don't mean to end on a bad note because it all ended up good. And I just want to bring it up because we talked about this at the beginning of the podcast about suicide.
Yeah.
And how, for most people, because I've experienced it, I started having suicidal thoughts, and I couldn't believe it. It just came out of nowhere. And then the crazy part to me was they started controlling me. I was having suicidal thoughts nonstop, and I started making plans of how can I get myself killed on duty so my family is kind of taken care of.
Right.
So the final In-N-Out story I'll tell you is, so fast forward to I finally put in to get a retirement, and I had my IME, and the doctor threw me a bone. As we were walking out of that IME, he literally tells me, you have a bad case of PTSD. That was him telling me, you're going to get retired.
Right.
And I knew that. So I'm sitting at home. I'm off work, and I got to run some errands. I grab the mail, and I go get In-N-Out. I can't deal with the crowd, so I'm sitting eating In-N-Out in the parking lot, and I start opening up my mail, and there's a letter from the IME doctor saying I have PTSD. So I know what's happening. At the same time I got this letter, my department got this letter. I looked at the date. I know I'm going to make the next retirement board. I'm going to be retired like in 2 weeks. And it hit me. I will never be a cop again. And that letter was just this big ball of emotions. That letter ended my career. That letter justified some of the thoughts I'd had. That letter justified to all the fucking people that wanted to always criticize me. You name it. That letter meant so much more than just what was on there. And I felt like the battle was over. This is it. I'm done.
You lost.
I've lost. I got nothing left to prove. I've been fighting this for years. So I'm eating that burger, and I'm sitting there in that parking lot, and I'm like, this is, it was a clear Arizona day, and I'm looking over their stupid fucking palm trees that are every In-N-Out. and I literally thought to myself, man, this is just perfect fucking place to kill yourself, you know? So I made a decision to kill myself in the car. Deep down inside, obviously I didn't want to. So I don't know if you touched on this earlier about reaching out. So I sent a text message to a buddy, and I didn't send him the typical, hey, how are things going? I think I sent him something like, do you got a minute? And he doesn't respond. So I'm still eating my burger, and being a cheap bastard, I'm going to get my whole burger before kill myself.
You go out.
So I send a second text message, like they always tell you, if you guys ever come to a pistol meeting or you go anywhere else, if first person doesn't answer, go to the next one. So I went to the next one and sent a message. Hey, do you got a minute? And I was down to like 3 bites on my burger, and I thought to myself, I feel bad for the officer that's going to respond to this call. I propped up that letter on my steering wheel, that there was this part of me that just, I wanted that to be the first thing they saw. This guy had a problem. And I had 3 bites left on my In-N-Out burger. And my phone rang. And the person, no hello, no, what's going on? Talk to me. And I just started crying, and that person saved my life. I'm still here. I'm thankful. And I just wanted to put that out there because when you're in that thought of suicide, it fucking controls your head, man. It got in there deep, and at this point I've had 2 more kids. I got 4 kids. I got a great wife, and really I got a good life. I'm just caught in my own head.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that person called, and I'm still here. So that's my thing on suicide. If you're feeling it, anybody out there's feeling it, you're not alone. It's fucked up how it attacks your head. Reach out. Cause you deserve to be here and you need that help to just help you get over that little hurdle.
Yeah. I appreciate it, Ray. I really do. Heavy one. I can't reiterate that enough. You may not have to, like Ray said, he didn't necessarily ask for help. But if you talk to your buddies enough, when something's not right. So, we always say, reach out to us, Pistol. If you don't reach out to us, reach out to somebody. Ray, we have tradition here. And I can tell you more than ever, you are part of the reason why Pistol exists and why we do what we do. As much skepticism as you have for us, we're always here for you. And I know you've always picked up the phone when I've reached out. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you, your family. And Tony knows this. Normally we do this Sober Sunday for some reason.
Yeah.
Because Ray's here. But to us and those like us.
Cheers, man.
See you guys on the next one.